The princess who couldn't bear children. Would a royal alien princess escape her palace in the middle of the night and come to Earth? Nobody knew. Not even the princess herself. Her name was Vera. She was the daughter of King Zarnak, ruler of the Barren Star Empire. Her people were proud, strong, and feared across many galaxies. But they had a secret. Their race was dying. For hundreds of years, no alien woman had been able to bear a child. Their species was slowly fading away. Ver grew up knowing she was useless. She wore her shining crown. She stood tall in her jeweled gowns. But behind the smile, she felt empty. Every doctor said the same thing. You cannot have children, princess. You are barren. Vera would nod politely. But inside, she wanted to scream. Her father, the king, had a plan. He wanted her to marry a powerful warlord from the outer stars. Together, they would conquer more worlds and make the Barren Empire strong again. But Vera was tired of being a tool. One night, under the red moons of her homeworld, she stood by her window and looked at the stars. She saw one small blue planet, glowing in the distance. Earth. She had heard whispers about humans, strange creatures. Weak in body, but strong in heart. She made her choice. She would leave. She didn't care what happened after when she arrived on Earth. She was surprised by how quiet it was. No guards, no shining weapons, no screams of war. Only the sound of wind in the trees and soft waves on the shore. She took a human form and walked through forests and towns. She watched children laughing in playgrounds. She watched men and women sitting together, holding hands, smiling at each other. It was strange. No one bowed to her. No one cared who she was. For the first time, she felt free. That's when she met Jack. He lived alone in a small wooden cabin by the lake. He was tall, with rough hands and tired eyes. A soldier, maybe. A man who had seen war but didn't talk about it. Vera was sitting on a rock, watching the water, when she heard his voice behind her. You're not from around here, are you? She turned slowly and met his eyes. They were calm but curious. No, she said softly. He didn't ask more. He only smiled a little and said, You can sit there as long as you want. The fish don't mind. Then he walked away. Vera started visiting the lake more often. She liked the silence there. She liked watching the birds. And she liked watching Jack. He always sat a little distance away, fixing his fishing nets or carving wood. Sometimes he would tell her stories. Simple stories about his childhood, about the war he fought in, about the people he lost. Vera listened. She didn't know why, but her chest felt warm when he spoke. One day, he handed her a cup of hot tea and asked, So, where's home for you? She hesitated. Then she said, Far away. Too far to go back. He nodded as if he understood. Same here, he said. They sat in silence after that. But it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. Days turned into weeks. Vera began to notice something strange. Her skin, which was always pale and cold, now felt warm. Her heartbeat, which was always steady and slow, now raced when Jack looked at her. And at night, when she was alone, she felt something deep inside her, like a spark. A strange energy. She touched her stomach one night and froze. There was a faint glow under her palm. Vera, single quotes, mind raced. This was impossible. No alien woman could bear life. Not for centuries. But here she was, feeling a warmth inside her body she had never felt before. It couldn't be. She stumbled out of her small room and ran to the lake. The moonlight reflected on the water, but she barely noticed. She looked up at the stars. She could almost feel her father's angry eyes, watching her from afar. And then, deep in her mind, She heard a faint voice. "Princess Vera," it whispered. "You are not alone. We have found you." Vera's eyes widened in shock. They had found her. Asterisk. Why she chose him. The air in the forest was still. But her mind was not. Vera stood alone by the dark lake, her silver eyes staring into the water. She could still hear the faint voice in her head. "We have found you." Her heart pounded fast. She thought she had escaped her father's reach. But she was wrong. Suddenly the silence broke. A loud crack behind her. She spun around. There he was, Jack. He was standing at the edge of the trees, holding an old lantern. His eyes narrowed when he saw her face, pale and scared. He walked closer and said, "Who are you talking to?" Vera tried to answer, but her throat felt dry. She took a step back. "You need to leave," she whispered. Jack didn't move. Instead, he set down his lantern and crossed his arms. "I'm not leaving," he said firmly. "You're hiding something. And now they're coming for you, aren't they?" His words sent a chill down her spine. She opened her mouth to deny it, but stopped. There was no point hiding anymore. She looked him in the eyes and spoke in a calm, sharp voice. "Yes, they are coming. For me. And for you." Jack tilted his head. "For me? Why me?" Vera took a deep breath. "Because," she said, stepping closer, "you are mine." Jack blinked. "What?" She lowered her voice. "You are my chosen mate." Jack stared at her, confused and angry. "What the hell are you talking about? I don't belong to anyone." Vera shook her head. Slowly. "That's where you're wrong. You were chosen long before you were even born." Jack laughed bitterly. "I'm just some fisherman who fixes nets and chops wood." "Chosen for what?" Vera's eyes glowed faintly now, the alien side of her showing through. "For the survival of my people," she said. "Your blood carries something. Old, something powerful. It can save my dying race. No other human can do what you can. Only you." Jack shook his head, backing away. "This is insane. You're insane. Go back to wherever you came from." Vera's eyes hardened. "I can't." "Go back," she said sharply. "And neither can you. Not now. You've already touched me. Chosen me." Jack stopped in his tracks. "Touched you? What the hell does that mean?" Vera raised her hand and touched her stomach, and for the first time, Jack noticed the faint blue glow beneath her fingers. "I am carrying your child," she said softly. "And when my father learns this, he will kill us both." Jack froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I mean, this can't be real," he muttered. But deep inside, a strange memory flickered in his mind. A dream he thought he had weeks ago, where she stood over him in the moonlight, her hands on his chest, whispering strange words as he slept. "What did you do to me?" he finally asked. "I awakened what was already inside you," she said quietly. "You are not just a human. You are the last of the ancient warriors who once ruled the stars with us. My father erased your kind from history. But you survived." Before Jack could speak, the ground suddenly shook. The trees swayed, and the water in the lake rippled violently. Vera's face turned pale. "They're here," she whispered. "From the sky above." A dark shadow fell over the lake. Jack looked up and saw it. A massive black ship, shaped like a claw, descending silently. Lights blinked on its surface. Strange symbols glowed faintly. Jack instinctively stepped in front of Vera. "What is that?" "The king's hunters," she said. "They won't stop until they tear you apart. And if they take you back, you'll wish you were dead." Jack clenched his fists. "I don't care about your alien politics. You brought this to my home." She grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his skin. "I brought you back to who you really are," she hissed. And now, you must fight for it." Before he could respond, a loud boom shook the ground as a squad of tall, armored creatures emerged from the trees. Surrounding them, Jack backed up, his breath quick. One of the creatures, with a skeletal silver mask and glowing red eyes, stepped forward and pointed at him. In a deep, echoing voice, it said, "The king demands the human. Surrender now." Jack looked at Vera. She looked back at him with fire in her eyes. "Run," she said, but Jack shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "If this is my fight, I'm not running." The masked creature growled. "Then die." The ground cracked beneath their feet. The air seemed to hum with invisible energy. Suddenly, a strange blue light flared from Jack's chest. His body glowed faintly. The hunters froze. Vera gasped. "It's happening," she whispered. "He's awakening." Jack felt power surging through his veins, ancient, wild, unstoppable. The nearest hunter lunged at him, and without thinking, Jack swung his arm. A wave of energy burst out from his hand, throwing the creature into the air and slamming it into a tree. Jack stared at his own hands, shocked. What the hell was that? Vera's lips curved into a faint smile. "You," she said softly, "are ready." The other hunters began closing in, weapons drawn. Jack clenched his glowing fists and took a deep breath. "Then let's give them a fight." Escape from the palace. The night sky above was full of smoke and stars. But on the ground, chaos reigned. Jack's hands still glowed faint blue, faint cracks of light running up his arms and into his chest. Around him lay the broken bodies of the alien hunters, unconscious, scattered across the forest floor. Vera stood behind him, her silver hair loose, her breathing fast. "You did it," she whispered. Jack turned to her slowly, his eyes shining like ice. His voice was quiet, but full of something new. "What's happening to me?" Vera swallowed hard. "You're awakening. Your blood remembers. Your power is returning." Jack shook his head, still staring at his glowing hands. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to be left alone." But before she could answer, the sky above split apart with a deafening roar. A massive ship, black and red, descended from the clouds. Its engines burned like fire. It was shaped like a predator's claw, and its long shadow swallowed the forest and lake below. "They sent it," Vera said grimly. "The king's warship." Jack looked up at the terrifying machine, his jaw tightening. "What happens if it catches us?" Vera's voice was flat. "You die, I die, and your power is lost forever." Jack glanced at her, then back at the ship. Not an option, then. Suddenly, blinding light swept over them. A voice boomed from the ship, cold and mechanical. "Human, you belong to the king. Surrender or be destroyed." Jack's lip curled into a faint smirk. "Not much of a choice, huh?" Vera grabbed his arm. "We can't fight the ship. Not yet. We run." Without waiting, she pulled him into the trees. Behind them, the ground erupted with explosions. The ship was firing, trees catching fire, smoke filling the air. They ran through the forest, dodging falling branches and burning debris. Jack could feel the strange energy inside him growing stronger with every step. Every time he stumbled, the ground itself seemed to push him forward. Finally, they reached a dark cave hidden behind a waterfall. Vera stopped and pressed her hand against the stone wall. A faint humming sound started, and a secret door slid open. Inside was a long spiral tunnel that glowed faintly with blue light. Jack followed her in, panting. "What is this place?" he asked. "A safe path," she sighed, her voice tense. "For now." They walked for what felt like hours. The air grew colder and heavier the deeper they went. Strange symbols glowed on the walls. Jack couldn't read them, but they somehow felt familiar. Finally, the tunnel opened into a giant underground chamber. In the middle of the chamber stood a sleek silver ship, shaped like a spear, humming quietly, its surface covered in the same strange symbols. Jack stared at it. "What is that?" Vera walked toward it and ran her fingers along its side. "It's ours," she said, "the only one of its kind. An ancient escape ship from the First War." Jack squinted at the strange patterns on the ship. "Why? Does it feel like I've seen this before?" Vera turned to him slowly, her silver eyes almost sad. "Because," she said softly, "you have. You fought in the First War, thousands of years ago, and you died. Or so we thought. But humans are stubborn creatures. One of you survived. You." Jack frowned, his fists clenching. "That doesn't make sense. I'm just me. I'm nobody." Vera stepped closer. "You are everything," she said fiercely. "You carry the blood of the starborn. You are the only hope we have left." Jack looked away, but deep inside, something stirred. A memory, faint but sharp. Flashes of fire, steel, stars falling from the sky. His own hands glowing brighter than the sun. As he struck down creatures he couldn't name. He stumbled back, clutching his head. Vera caught him, holding him steady. "You're remembering," she whispered. "That's good. But we don't have time for more." Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. A deep, booming voice echoed down the tunnel. "Human, princess, you cannot." "Hide." Jack's head snapped up. That voice. Vera's face went pale. "My father." From the shadows of the tunnel, dark figures emerged. Tall, armored soldiers with burning eyes and sharp weapons. And behind them, a towering figure in black and gold armor, his presence so heavy it made the air feel like stone. The alien king. He stepped into the chamber, his golden crown glinting in the dim light. His voice rumbled like thunder. "Vera? My daughter, you disappoint me." Vera stood tall, but Jack could feel her body trembling next to him. "I choose my own path," she said loudly. "And my own mate." The king's eyes glowed brighter. "You choose a human over your people?" He roared. "You shame us all. And now, you will watch him die." He raised his hand, and the soldiers charged forward. Jack stepped. In front of Vera, his body instinctively glowing brighter, energy crackling in the air around him. The soldiers stopped for a second. Unsure, Jack took a deep breath and spoke, his voice calm but full of power. "No." The air around him exploded in a wave of blue light, knocking the first row of soldiers back into the walls. The king narrowed, his eyes watching silently as Jack raised his glowing hands. "You wanted me?" Jack said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Then come and take me." The king's mouth curled into a cruel smile. "So be it," he said. "Let us see if you are worthy of the stars you once betrayed." The chamber shook as the king himself began to descend the steps toward them. The final battle between father, daughter, and the last human about to begin the forbidden planet. The chamber was shaking as the king's armored boots struck the floor, step by step. Jack stood his ground, his hands still glowing faint blue. The king's voice thundered, "On your knees, human. You are nothing before me." But Jack didn't move. Instead, he said in a steady voice, "Funny, you seem afraid." For a moment, the king froze, and then he laughed. "A worm, speaking like a lion. We'll see how long that courage lasts." The air around them began to burn. Soldiers surrounded the room, weapons raised. Jack clenched his fists. A power in him surged, wild and uncontrollable. He felt something inside him whispering, "Run now, or you will lose everything." Then, a bright flash of light. Vera had pressed her palm to the ancient ship. Its walls glowed, and the door slid open with a low hum. "Jack," she shouted. "In here, now!" Jack turned, just as the king raised his massive arm to strike. He dove toward the ship, grabbing Vera's hand as they both stumbled inside. The door shut behind them with a deafening clang. The ship lit up, symbols glowing all over its walls. It spoke in a strange language that somehow Jack could understand. Coordinates locked. Escape sequence initiated. The ship roared to life and shot upward like a falling star in reverse, through stone, fire, and sky, leaving the king's furious roar echoing below. When Jack opened his eyes again, they were floating in space. Stars stretched endlessly around them, but ahead lay a strange planet, dark, wrapped in storms, with glowing cracks across its surface like veins of fire. Jack leaned forward, staring through the glass. "What is that place?" Vera's voice was low. "The Forbidden's Planet." Jack glanced at her. "That's a cute name. Why does it sound like we shouldn't be going there?" Vera didn't smile. "No one dares land there. Not anymore. It's said to be cursed, haunted by the dead. But," she turned to look at him, "that's where your memories live, where the truth about you and me waits." As the ship descended through thick black clouds, Jack felt a strange pressure in his chest, heavy yet familiar. He could hear whispers in his head, 1,000 voices murmuring in a language he somehow understood. They landed on a cracked plain of black stone. The air was hot and smelled like ash. All around them stood giant statues, broken, weathered, of humans and aliens standing side by side. But all the human statues were shattered. Only the alien kings remained intact, looming over the ruins. Jack walked slowly among them, feeling uneasy. What happened here? Vera followed him closely. "This is where the last humans made their stand," she said quietly. "Against my father's ancestors. This is where you died." Jack stopped and turned sharply. "You keep saying that." "I died, but I'm standing right here." Vera shook her head. "You don't understand. The humans who fought here were not like the humans you know today. They were warriors born of stars and storms. Their bodies burned with light. But in the end, they were betrayed." Jack narrowed his eyes. "By who?" She met his gaze. "By one of their own." They walked deeper into the ruins, past fallen pillars and shattered weapons. Jack felt the whispers growing louder. He stumbled, clutching his head, and suddenly the ground beneath him cracked open. He fell. Darkness swallowed him. When he opened his eyes, he was somewhere else. A great battlefield stretched before him, sky on fire, armies clashing. Humans in golden armor, wielding light like swords, fighting monstrous alien beasts. At the center stood himself, but different, taller, armored in glowing blue and white, his eyes blazing like twin suns. Jack watched as his other self raised his arms and unleashed a massive wave of light that wiped out entire enemy lines. But then the vision twisted. His other self turned, and in his hand was a blade, dripping with human blood. Jack staggered back. "No." A shadowy figure behind him laughed cruelly. "You killed them all," the figure hissed. "You betrayed your kind. You were his weapon all along." Jack spun around, but the figure vanished into black smoke. He fell to his knees. "No, that's not me. That can't be me." Suddenly, a warm hand touched his shoulder. Vera was there, pulling him back to the surface. The battlefield faded. The ruins returned. Jack gasped for air. Vera crouched beside him. "I told you this place shows the truth. Not all truths are easy to see." Jack looked at her, his face pale. "I betrayed them, didn't I?" Vera didn't answer. She only looked away. Then a loud crack in the sky above. The clouds tore open, and a fleet of black warships descended, blotting out the stars. At the center of the fleet hovered a single massive ship, the king's personal vessel. Voice boomed down like thunder. "You cannot hide from what you are. Come back, human. Kneel, and you may yet be spared." Jack stood slowly, his hands glowing brighter than ever now. He turned to Vera and said quietly, "No, not this time." He stared up at the sky, at the waiting ships, and clenched his fists. "I don't care who I was. I know who I am now. And I'm not kneeling." The ground beneath them began to rumble. The air cracked with energy. Jack took a step forward. Blue light blazed from his body, so bright it cast long shadows across the ruins. The ancient statues around them began to shake, and one by one they shattered. Jack looked at Vera, his voice calm but full of power. "Let him come. I'll finish what I started." Above them, the king's ship lowered, its weapons charging. Vera's eyes widened in fear, but Jack only smirked. "Your move," he whispered. The hidden power of the sky above the forbidden planet burned. The king's warships hovered like black vultures, their weapons humming with deadly light. The earth below shook under Jack's feet as his body glowed brighter than ever, cracks of blue energy running up his arms and across his chest. Vera stood behind him, her silver eyes wide with fear and awe. Jack clenched his fists and stared at the massive flagship in the sky. For the first time, his voice carried no hesitation. "Come down here, King. Face me yourself." For a long moment there was silence. Then the king's deep voice thundered from the clouds. "You want me, human? Then climb to me, if you can." The ground cracked open, and from it rose an ancient stairway of black stone, spiraling upward toward the hovering flagship. Each step glowed faint red, hot to the touch. Jack glanced back at Vera. "You stay here," he said, but she shook her head. "No, you don't understand. The path is a trap. The king designed it to break you before you reach him. It will test your mind, your soul, and if you fall." She didn't finish her sentence. Jack simply said, "Then I won't fall." He placed one foot on the first step and immediately felt a crushing weight press down on him, as if the air itself hated him. The climb began. Step after step. The heat rose. The pressure grew heavier. The voices in his head returned, louder now, crueler. "Murderer, betrayer, you killed them all." Jack shook his head, trying to block them out. But with each step, visions appeared around him. The battlefield again. Humans burning. His own hands, covered in blood. He stumbled, gripping the railing. "No," he growled through clenched teeth. "That wasn't me. Not anymore." But the voices laughed. "You always belong to the king. You always will." On the 10th step, the shadows took shape. Dark warriors, reflections of himself, rose from the ground and attacked him. They moved fast, striking with blades of black light. Jack fought back, each punch and kick sending shockwaves through the air. But every time he struck one down, two more appeared. Their eyes glowed red, and their whispers filled his head. "You're just like us. You can't escape what you are." Jack fell to one knee, panting. Then he heard another voice, soft, warm, Vera's voice. "You're more than what he made you. You are mine now, and you are free." Jack's eyes snapped open, blazing with bright blue light. The shadows screamed as a wave of energy burst from him, shattering them into dust. He kept climbing. The steps began to crumble behind him now. He couldn't stop even if he wanted. Higher and higher he climbed, until the air grew thin and cold. Ahead of him stood the final gate, two massive doors of dark metal, carved with strange alien runes. Jack pushed them open. The throne room of the king was vast and cold. Its walls were made of black glass, reflecting strange, shifting stars. Outside, at the center sat the king himself, towering, his golden armor glowing faintly, his crown sharp like a blade. His red eyes watched Jack silently. Then he spoke, impressive. Most humans collapse before the 50th step. You climbed them all. Jack stepped forward, his glow lighting the floor. I'm not like the others, he said. The king stood slowly, his massive shadow falling over Jack. No, he said darkly. You're worse. You were my greatest weapon, and my greatest failure. Jack's fists clenched. You used me, lied to me, made me kill my own kind. The king smiled faintly. And yet you did it gladly. Don't you remember? You begged me to give you power. You begged to be my blade. And you were magnificent until you turned. Jack shook his head. That was then. This is now. The king tilted his head. And now? What are you now? A broken human pretending to be a hero? You think my daughter's affection makes you pure? His laughter rumbled like thunder. You'll always be mine. Suddenly, the king raised his hand. The throne room exploded in black energy, and a dozen of his elite assassins materialized from the shadows. Their bodies were sleek and sharp, their faces hidden behind masks, their weapons glowing red. Jack raised his hands. The blue glow around him blazed brighter, but he could feel the strain now, the weight of the climb, the whispers still gnawing. At his mind, the assassins charged. What followed was chaos. Jack moved like a storm, faster, stronger than he thought possible. Every punch shattered the floor, every kick sent enemies flying, but they were fast too. They cut his arms, his chest, his sides. For every one he struck down, another leapt. At him, he felt himself slowing, his knees buckling, the king's laughter echoing above it all. Then, just as an assassin raised its blade for the killing blow, a bolt of silver light shot through the air. Vera stood at the door, her eyes blazing. She raised her hands and unleashed a storm of light that disintegrated half the assassins instantly. Jack looked at her, breathless. You shouldn't have come, he said. She stepped beside him. I told you before, she said softly. You are mine now, and I don't let what's mine die so easily. The last few assassins hesitated, but the king snarled and raised his hand. Summoning a massive black blade of energy dot, he pointed it at Jack. This ends here, the king growled. No more games. Bow to me or die as a traitor. Jack stood tall. The air around him began to crack and burn. The glow of his body grew so bright it hurt to look at. His voice rang through the room, calm and clear. I bowed to you once, never again. The king swung his blade, and Jack met it with his bare hand. Blue light clashed with black in a deafening explosion. The entire throne room cracked, pieces of the ceiling falling as the walls shattered. For a moment, everything was silent. Then Jack's power erupted fully, throwing the king back into his throne. When the dust cleared, Jack stood in the center of the room, his body wrapped in pure blue fire, his eyes glowing like two small stars. The assassins lay scattered and broken. The king's blade was gone, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. Jack took a step closer. This isn't over, he said. Not until you pay for everything you've done. The king's eyes narrowed, but he stayed silent. Jack turned to Vera and nodded. Let's finish this. Together, they walked toward the shattered throne, leaving the king watching them with quiet fury. Asterisk, the final duel. Throne room was silent now. Shattered pillars leaned at odd angles. The walls were cracked, glowing faint red where the king's energy had struck. Smoke curled in the air. Jack stood in the center of the room, his body glowing brighter than ever. The blue fire around him hummed, growing sharper, more alive. Beside him stood Vera, silver light in her eyes, her hands ready to strike. Across from them, the king still sat on his throne, his golden crown cracked, his black armor dented, but his eyes still burned with cruel, unbroken rage. At last, the king spoke, his deep voice filling the room like thunder. "You've come far, human, farther than anyone else. But this ends now." Jack narrowed his eyes. "You've said that before," he said, his voice calm. "And yet I'm still standing." The king rose slowly, his massive figure towering over both of them. With a wave of his hand, the ceiling split open, and above them, the sky revealed itself. Thousands of soldiers waited outside, alien troops in black and red armor, their weapons glowing, ships hovering above the palace. The entire barren star empire had gathered to watch. The king gestured toward them and growled, "They all see you now. You think you've won something? You're just a man, a spark in the dark. I am the storm. I will burn you down, just like I burned your people before." Jack didn't flinch. Instead, he raised his glowing fists and said simply, "Then try." The duel began. The king moved first, faster than anyone his size should be, his black blade slicing through the air, aimed at Jack's head. Jack ducked, his own hands catching the blade, the blue fire sparking where they clashed. The energy between them exploded, the force throwing Vera and the watching soldiers back several steps. Jack countered with a punch that cracked the throne behind the king, but the king only laughed. "Good," he sneered. "You're learning what it means to be me." He swung again, but Jack caught his wrist, twisted, and slammed him into the ground. The palace shook. The king roared and unleashed a wave of black lightning, striking Jack square in the chest. Jack staggered, the glow around him flickering. But he didn't fall. Instead, he straightened and took another step forward, blue light blazing brighter now, filling the entire room. The soldiers outside gasped. "You still don't understand," Jack said, his voice carrying over the battlefield. "This isn't about you anymore, or me, or even her." He pointed at Vera. "This is about everyone you've crushed, everyone you've silenced. That ends today." The king's eyes narrowed to thin red slits. "You think you can lead them? You? A traitor? A killer of your own kind?" Jack's lip curled into a faint smirk. "I'm done running from what I was. And I'm done running from you." The king lunged again. Their power clashed with a deafening crack that split the stone floor in two. Blue and black light spiraled upward, striking the sky above and sending shockwaves through the palace walls. Outside, the soldiers began to murmur. Some lowered their weapons. Some stepped back, their faces uncertain. For the first time in centuries, they saw their king. Bleeding. The duel raged on. Jack struck with everything he had, fists glowing, eyes blazing, every blow pushing the king backward. But the king was relentless, every strike of his black blade tearing pieces from Jack's armor, cutting his skin, trying to drown him in shadow. At last, Jack staggered, falling to one knee. The king loomed over him, his blade raised high. "This ends," the king growled, "as it began, with you broken at my feet." Then Vera stepped forward. Her hands glowed silver as she placed them on Jack's shoulders. Her voice rang clear across the throne room. "No, it ends with him standing." Her light flowed into him, and suddenly Jack's glow flared like a star. The king froze, his blade faltering. Jack rose to his feet, eyes now burning with a mix of blue and silver fire. He looked the king in the eye and said, "I was your weapon once. Now I'm my own." With a roar, Jack struck, a punch fueled by everything inside him, all the pain, all the rage, all the hope. The force of it shattered the king's blade. and sent him crashing across the room. His golden crown spinning off and clattering to the floor, the king lay still, his chest rising and falling slowly. For the first time, his eyes no longer burned. They only stared, wide and empty. The room fell silent. The soldiers outside lowered their weapons one by one. Some knelt. Some simply watched in stunned silence. Jack stood in the center of the floor. Broken throne room, his chest heaving, the glow around him finally fading. He turned to Vera. She stepped toward him, her eyes wet but her smile steady. "You did it," she whispered. Jack shook his head slowly. "No, we did." Then he turned to the crowd outside. They watched him, thousands of them, waiting. Jack raised his voice so all could hear. "No more chains," he shouted. "No more lies. No more kings. Today, we're free." A great cheer rose from the soldiers. One by one, they dropped to their knees, not to worship him, but to honor him. Jack glanced at the king's fallen crown. For a moment, he considered it. Then he kicked it aside and walked out of the throne room, Vera at his side. Above them, the stars shone brighter than ever. For the first time in his life, Jack felt truly alive. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy was quiet, but deep in the shadows beyond the palace, something darker was already stirring, because some wars never truly end a new beginning. Galaxy was quiet. The war was over. On the balcony of the broken palace, Jack stood looking out at the horizon. Below him stretched the capital city, no longer dark and full of fear, but alive with strange lights and voices. The people, humans and aliens alike, walked freely through the streets now. The soldiers who once served the king now worked to rebuild what they had destroyed. The golden banners of the old regime lay torn on the ground. Jack rested his hands on the railing and let out a long breath. For the first time, the weight in his chest felt lighter. Behind him, Vera appeared silently. She wore no crown now, just simple clothes, her silver hair loose, her eyes calm. "You're awake early," she said softly. Jack turned and managed a faint smile. "Couldn't sleep," he said. "Still feels strange, like it's not real." Vera stepped closer. "It's real," she said. "You fought for it. You bled for it. You made it real." He nodded but didn't answer. His gaze drifted back to the city below. "What now?" he asked finally. Vera tilted her head, considering. "Now," she said, "we build something better." The next weeks passed quickly. Jack became the reluctant leader of a fragile new alliance between humans and aliens. The people called him many names: the Starborn, the Last Warrior, the Human King, but he refused all titles. He simply called himself Jack. He and Vera worked side by side, visiting every shattered world in the Empire. They freed prisoners, disarmed soldiers, helped families rebuild their homes. Everywhere they went, whispers followed them. "That's him. That's the human who stood against the king." Jack tried to ignore the whispers. He didn't feel like a hero. Not yet. One night, Vera found him alone in the Great Hall, staring at the cracked throne. "You should rest," she said gently. "You've earned it." Jack shook his head. "I keep thinking," he murmured, "about what he said. About me being his weapon. About me betraying my kind." Vera walked over and stood beside him. "That wasn't you," she said firmly. "Not really. That was the person he made you to be. You broke his chains. That's all that matters. Now." Jack looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Thank you." But peace didn't last. One morning, a ship arrived from the edge of the galaxy, battered, barely holding together. Its pilot, a young alien soldier, stumbled out and collapsed in front of Jack and Vera. His voice was shaking when he spoke. "They're coming," he gasped. "They heard the king fell. And now they're coming for all of us. Jack crouched and steadied him. Who? He asked calmly. Who's coming? The soldier looked up, terror in his eyes. The Forgotten. The room fell silent. Even Vera's face paled at the word. She whispered it like a curse. The Forgotten. I thought they were just a myth. Jack frowned. Who are they? Vera turned to him, her voice low and heavy. They were the King's greatest enemies. Even he feared them. Creatures older than the stars, banished beyond the edge of space because they couldn't be killed. Jack straightened slowly. And now they know he's gone. And we're next. The soldier nodded weakly. They're already moving. World after world. Burning, they want you, human. The one who broke the king. Jack let out a long breath. Of course they do, he muttered. That night, as the city below celebrated its fragile peace, Jack stood alone on the balcony again. The stars above seemed sharper somehow, colder, as if something was watching. From beyond them, that Veyra joined him, her silver eyes reflecting the faint glow of distant galaxies. Will you fight them too? She asked quietly. Even if they can't be killed? Jack didn't look at her. He just kept staring at the stars. I don't care what they are, he said finally. If they're coming for my people, they'll have to go through me. Vera's lips curved into a faint, sad smile. Then, she said softly, you truly are the last warrior. Far above them, beyond the edge of known space, something vast and ancient began to wake. Eyes like black suns opened in the void. Whispers colder than ice rippled across dead galaxies. And a voice, low and cruel, echoed through the darkness. The human thinks he has won. Let him think it. When he stands before us, then he will learn what true power is. Back on the palace balcony, Jack closed his eyes and whispered. To himself, let them come. The end. Or just the beginning.